Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Basketball Bulletin. We've got breaking news. It's happened. Kevin Durant traded to the Houston Rockets. Who wins the trade? What is the deal? And where do we go from here? Oh, boy. Happy to see you all here to break down this news live. If you're not a subscriber to the Basketball Bulletin yet, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, I talked about it just a few hours ago here on this channel, that it was imminent. I didn't realize it was going to happen just a couple of hours later, but here we are. Kevin Durant is a Houston Rocket.
Yeah, you were like, oh, this is going to happen really soon. I need to get this video out. It doesn't have a long shelf life. And man, I didn't know that would be literally an hour. So that's pretty funny, but I'm excited. I'm happy that we finally got the Kevin Durant trade. It's kind of, you've got to wonder if Silver just is like, man, you guys couldn't have announced this tomorrow.
Right. Because we've got Game 7 of the NBA Finals tonight. Adam Silver is like, come on, guys, you couldn't have given us one night, because now everybody's going to be talking about the KD trade tonight.
Yeah, crazy.
Donnie, let's get into the specifics of the deal. We're going to talk today, everybody, on what the specifics of this deal are, what this means for Phoenix, what this means for Houston, who won the trade, and then what this means for the trade market overall. So that's what we're getting into. As Brian Walters notes, please, everybody, smash that like button. We appreciate all of you out there. So the deal is Kevin Durant to Houston for Jalen Green, who the Suns, from what we've heard, do not really want that much. So that tells me there's more coming here. Dylan Brooks, the 10th pick in the 2025 draft, and five second-round picks. And Donnie, I think that's actually a loss for the Phoenix Suns, because they did not get their own future draft capital back. What did you think on this?
Isn't the pick at 10 theirs at least?
Well, yes, the pick at 10 is theirs, but they also have
something.
They got something back. They got one of their picks back, but the Rockets still have the 2027 Suns first and the 2029 Suns first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is probably what they were really truly after. But I don't know that this is the best deal, but I'm gonna reserve judgment, just because who knows, maybe they could flip some of this stuff into something else. Like they don't, like you said, they don't really want Jalen Green so much. Those seconds may be able to turn into something else, so there's value here for them. But really, honestly, the whole pick situation has been really bad for some years, and this just compounds the fact that they weren't able to get a deal done at the deadline, but still traded a pick for two. So they're just kind of in a weird spot.
This is, when I look at this trade package, I can't help to be a little bit underwhelmed from the Suns side of things. Now, it was just a few years ago, this was the return on Kevin Durant that the Brooklyn Nets got.
Yeah, but context.
Sure.
Context. KD is pushing 37 now.
Right.
Has been dealing with injury issues for years now, on and off, albeit. But the tricky thing with him is that, like, despite whatever questions you may have, Greeny had a good piece on ESPN the other day where he made the case for Kevin Durant. And long story short, KD is still one of the best offensive players in the NBA, and
absolutely
is actually a really good defensive player still too, despite what people think. So, like, he's absolutely a guy I think you could target. It's he's 36, 37, right?
Exactly. That's it. He's, we're talking about a window of 2-3 years or whatever, and that's fine.
63 in basketball years.
That's fine, right? Yeah, 63 in basketball years. That's pretty good. Yeah, he's 37, but he's 37. But do people forget? Why do we forget? He put up 27, 6, and 4 last season with over 1 block per game on 43% from deep and 53% from the field. Like, Kevin Durant is still an absolute monster. And here's why I love this for Houston. I don't like this so much for the Suns. I love this for Houston because he's exactly what they needed. He's exactly what they needed. They were a Kevin Durant away from beating the Warriors in the playoffs this last year. Houston is now, I think, a legitimate threat to come out of the Western Conference because their Achilles heel, their biggest problem was when the offense bogged down in the half court, which it did a lot. They didn't have anybody they could throw the ball to and just go get a bucket. Now they do. Now they've got one of the greatest to ever do that in Kevin Durant. I think he is a perfect fit in Houston. Now he's going to get, as Mariano asked, What about the extension? Yeah, he's probably going to sign a contract extension now. We're going to see that happen too. He'll probably get a new 2-year deal to be with the Houston Rockets. And again, I think this is going to be, we could say, well, this is a 3-year window for the Rockets, maybe, depending on KD and all of that. But at this price, I think that's baked in. I think the short window that you now get with Kevin Durant is baked in when we look at this price that the Rockets are giving up. Dylan Brooks, hey, Dylan the villain, he's fine, right? He's just fine as an NBA player. He's not a guy that I'm excited to lose, but it's not the end of the world to lose him either.
He was integral to them taking the next step as well. Like, I want to give him a little bit of respect. He was really good for them.
Who, Dylan Brooks?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he for sure. He and Fred
shot 40%
VanVleet
from 3 this year on 6 attempts per game, by the way.
They changed the mentality in Houston. They changed the trajectory in Houston. Absolutely. You're right, Donnie. Give those guys credit. But Dylan Brooks is gone. Jalen Green is gone. And the number 10 pick, Reed Shepherd was the number 3 pick last year. And I know the 2 drafts aren't the same, but Reed Shepherd couldn't get on the floor. For the Rockets weren't going to draft anybody at 10 that was going to make any kind of a difference for them this year. So you're adding Kevin Durant to this team. You maybe have a 3-year window, but guess what? You kept Jabari Smith. You kept Amin Thompson. You kept Reed Shepherd. You kept all of these young pieces that you've got. So this means that as Kevin Durant inevitably starts declining, well, guess what? Those younger guys that you kept, and you still have those 2 Suns picks coming up, they're going to be on the upswing, which means you're going to have sustained quality with Houston in addition to the ability to go win right now. I love this deal for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, for the Rockets, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's just weird for Phoenix because, like we were saying, unless they turn this into something else, they've got a nasty logjam of like 6'4" to 6'6" guys over there. We talk about Booker and Green, but what about like the fact that what's it called? Brooks fits into that as well. Another 6'6" guys, shooting guard, small forward. Beal is still there. Like, they've got some nasty stuff to figure out with like too much shooting guard depth there. And I just think it's really clunky. It's similar to what it was before. I think Brooks is fine. I think he could fit and play, alongside Booker just fine. But I just think that Booker, Beal, Green is like the exact same problem you had already. So I don't really know where you're going with that unless, like we were saying, they flip it into something else. But, for Houston, I really, really thought, like, when we were talking about putting together packages, I was like, man, is adding like Jabari Smith to it just a little too much? Like, you don't want to give up too much young talent. And I know they were the 2nd overall seed, but a lot of these guys still have room to get better too. Like, this team is still pretty young aside from a few guys, right? Obviously KD being one of the older guys in the NBA at this point, but they've still got a lot of room. So I like it for them, just really questioning it for Phoenix's side.
Yeah, you know what? I think the Phoenix side, here's where I am willing to give Phoenix a little bit of grace here. And by the way, Tari Eason, I should mention him too. I didn't mention him among the young guys. Joel mentioned him.
They got to keep all their guys.
Yeah, they kept him too. Tari Eason's phenomenal.
Thompson, Shepherd, Smith. They got to. The only one they gave up was Green.
Joel said
they didn't love Green either. So
no, and Joel said the Lakers should try to get Tari Eason. Very underrated, absolutely. But that's true of every team. It could use a Tari Eason. He's a great player. I don't think Houston's going to move on from him. They're going to keep him. But let's talk a little bit about the Jalen Green piece here. I'll tell you this. I don't think Jalen Green is staying in Phoenix. I think they're going to move him. Either they move him now, and this ultimately, before it gets, by the way, Spot Track, look at them on the ball. They already have Kevin Durant on Houston's roster. I think Jalen Green either gets moved now, the deal gets expanded, and Jalen Green winds up going to a 3rd or 4th team before it actually gets submitted to the NBA. Remember, in this, when you get a deal, and we hear the parameters of this deal, it can always be changed before it gets actually submitted to the league office. Once it's submitted, that's it. It's done. So I do think that Jalen Green, this will either get expanded and he'll go somewhere else, or Phoenix will trade him by himself somewhere. I don't think he sticks in Phoenix. It doesn't make sense for them to go after him. And there's a reason why all of the rumors have been that the Suns are looking for a 3rd team, a 4th team to take Jalen Green. He doesn't fit with Devin Booker. Donnie, I don't think the Suns are even doing the right thing in trying to build around Devin Booker. I think they should be more willing to burn the whole thing to the ground and truly, like their namesake would suggest, rise from the ashes, build again. They should move Devin Booker, but they're not gonna. they're going to try to build around him. And if that's what you're going to do, it's the wrong decision. But if that's what you're going to do, Jalen Green makes no sense. So I don't think Phoenix is done here. And that's why I don't want to judge them too harshly just yet.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, man, as things are, there's a lot of questions here, but some of this stuff has to get rerouted for this deal to look better. And at that point, we'd have to obviously judge it on that. But until then, it doesn't look great for them overall. I think that the Houston team got the better of this because they gave up Green, who they didn't really care much about. They gave up a first round pick they probably weren't going to use too much. They got to keep all of the young guys. Like that's aside
amazing.
from Green, of course, they got to keep everybody. Even a guy like Cam Whitmore, they got to keep. They got to keep literally everybody. So, and they were the number 2 team in the West last year. They were a Kevin Durant away from probably winning that series, right? And they now have much higher offensive ceiling. And somebody said KD is washed. He's absolutely not washed.
No.
Unfortunately, at this point, he's still kicking. If you're hoping for him to be washed, he's not. But I do think there are concerns with the Kevin Durant, and I do think they'll have to maybe manage his load during the season and just more so try to push to the postseason with him because he is older, right? And he is at risk for other things, but. Yeah, I do question this for Houston for like the 5th time, or for Phoenix for the 5th time saying it. But I do wonder if this was just flat out the best they were going to get, though. Like, what about all that posturing? Oh, we're going to send him whoever has the best deal. You wound up sending him not only to a team that wanted him, but to one of his 3 preferred destinations.
That's all they're trying to create leverage. That's all they were, because all these teams kept saying, well, Phoenix, we know you want to get the deal done before the draft. Kevin Durant is going on 37 years old. And
why were they dead set on doing it for this draft anyway?
Because they wanted to pick this year. They wanted to be able to make that selection.
Why, though? Like, why this year specifically? Why couldn't you wait till next year?
There must be somebody they really like in the draft at that spot that they believe is going to be there. And I think there is some talent there.
That's a good draft.
Look, they want a center. Maybe, I mean, I don't think he'll still be there, but what about Kaman Malawach? What if he winds up being there? That could be, the center of the future.
Move up a couple slots and get him if they need.
Exactly. Look, that's the other piece to this too, is that Phoenix, one of the boxes they wanted to check, it wasn't just moving KD, it wasn't just getting draft capital for him, it wasn't just getting young talent, which they do get young talent in Jalen Green, but they also wanted to get a center. And so they haven't checked that box either. Yeah, as Jonathan says, Derek Queen also. Yeah, Derek Queen is another guy who could potentially be there. So look, I do think they probably have somebody they really like at 10. That's probably part of this dynamic. But Phoenix blinked. Bottom line, the Suns blinked. This was a staring contest between the Suns, the Rockets, the Heat were involved, the Spurs, the Wolves, the Raptors. They wanted to get involved, but KD didn't want to go there. We talked about how Kevin Durant was going to help influence his own landing spot here, and he certainly did. But ultimately, the question was, who's going to blink? Phoenix blinked. They did not get they wanted Jabari Smith. They wanted some of the young talent. They wanted future picks. They didn't get any of it. Now, they got 5 seconds, and that's value. There's real value. Second-round picks are not throwaways. My guess is Phoenix said, we want 27, the 2027 pick, or Jabari Smith. And the Rockets said, nah, how about we'll give you 3 seconds? Okay, 4 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds, but we will not, but this is final offer. We will not do the 2027 first or Jabari Smith. And then Phoenix blinked and they said, okay, all right, we'll do it.
Yeah, that is probably just, I think, the best deal they were going to get in terms of actual assets back. Because we know that San Antonio was playing the long game. They were like, no, we're not giving you anything. So if you're going to do the trade, then do the trade.
Now, let me say this. I think Phoenix getting Dillon Brooks, this is the kind of guy that is what you need. This is the kind of guy that fits
for them.
He's exactly what the Suns need. Is it enough value back? No. And we'll see what they do with Jalen Green. Maybe there's more coming here. But getting Dillon Brooks back, if you are going to build a team around Devin Booker, a guy like Dillon Brooks is exactly what you want. And Bradley Beal, too. Part of the problem they had was that Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, their skill sets overlap too much. And I think Dillon Brooks gives you enough of all the other stuff that he'll be a really good fit there in Phoenix. Again, I don't think the Suns are done. They could take some of this draft capital and move it again. They could, there's a lot of different things that Phoenix can do now. But I do think that getting Dillon Brooks back in this deal is a nice fit for Phoenix moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he was integral to their success last year, to also changing the culture when he came there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mentality with that team, all that stuff. There's several pieces, Fred, Udoka, a lot of things. But Brooks, like I said earlier, 6 3-point attempts, 40% shooter. Plays against the opposition's best offensive perimeter threat as well. Nice guy you can have, 30, so in the heart of his prime and all that stuff. And he's on the Devin Booker timeline for better or worse. They're going in on that. People have been asking about Nick Richards in the chat. They're not trading Richards as far as we know. They want to make him the backup and get a starting center there. So
Yeah.
don't think that they're moving Richards unless they're getting another center back, I'd imagine. But I'm looking at this roster. One thing that kind of jumped out to me, it's not like there's a real outlier here, but on average, this team's kind of old. There's a lot of 30-year-olds on this team.
Yeah, I mean, this team was built around let's win right now with Kevin Durant. And here's the other thing, big picture, everybody. This is, Donnie, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but this was the Phoenix Suns for the last few years have been a test of the NBA's new collective bargaining agreement. It was set up to dissuade teams from doing what the Suns did and stack talent, going after three very high-priced players. And we could say the Boston Celtics are the exception to that, the way they were able to stack talent. But even they now, whether or not they had the Jason Tatum injury, they were going to drop below that second-tier apron. The Phoenix Suns are giving in. That's what's happening here. When we're looking big picture at the NBA, the Phoenix Suns flipped the double middle finger, not just one, they flipped two at the NBA's collective bargaining agreement and said, we don't care what the rules say. We're going to do it anyway. We are going to take the punishment. We're going to spend the money because Matt Ishbia, I've got the funds. I'm going to spend. I'm going to go get the top name talent. I'm going to make a big splash. And I don't care what your rules are. Now the Suns have felt the sting of the new collective bargaining agreement, and they are relenting. They are giving in. They are saying, okay, we're going to play by your rules. We're going to move one of our players. We're going to try to cut salary. We're going to drop below that second tier apron. We're going to try to get picks back, all of that. What happened to the Suns, while it has not been pleasant for Suns fans, for the general NBA, if you have interest in this idea of parity, this has been a win for the NBA.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. Absolutely. So what's next for Phoenix, do you think? Aside from potentially flipping Green, what else do you think they have to do?
So I think from here, you continue to divest yourself from some of this talent. And that means now, yes, it's a Jalen Green trade, but it also means, and I do think that Jalen Green, they do move him. If I was them, I'd be looking for
who's buying on Jalen Green?
I mean, is he volatile? Yes. Yeah. But his contract kind of reflects that, right? I mean, he's 33 million this year, 36 million. And you just have to hope that as he gets older, some of the volatility subsides, because when he gets it going, he is a joy to watch. He is an absolute flamethrower. The problem is there's no in between. He's either going to win you the game or he's going to lose you the game. Yeah. And you have to hope that those wins start to outweigh the losses. But I think some teams will be interested in him, particularly if you are a young team that's on the upswing. You think about a team like Washington, before Orlando got Des Bane, maybe he could have been a fit there. But anybody that's looking to inject a little bit of firepower into their offense, I think Jalen Green makes sense. But so you move him, and then you start seriously looking at Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal trades, because I think those are the other two guys. Well, let me add Cody Martin into that mix too. Those are the three guys that I think will have value around the league. They're old enough to where Phoenix, if they want to get value for them, they probably need to move them now if they truly want to flip this thing around on the fly. So now it's about a Jalen Green trade, and then you're listening on Allen, on O'Neal, and Cody Martin, and you're seeing what you can get done there. Specifically, if you can add a big in that process, that's what they're looking for. I would also be looking for a defensive backcourt player, because they're lacking that with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. I'm looking for an ace defensive player to put into my backcourt. And then I'm committing as many minutes as I can to guys like Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro as well, and moving forward that way.
Yeah, this team could really use, you were just saying like they needed a backcourt defensive player. This team could really use like a Chris Dunn type, low usage backcourt defensive player.
What they should not do, Donnie, and I'm afraid this is what they will do. They should not go get Drew Holiday. And I fear that's what they will do, but they should not do that.
Really nice next to Booker
for a year.
But he's not. They need to be getting younger, not older, right?
Exactly. Exactly. They
But
need to
he'd
be a
nice
younger
next
Dono.
Booker.
By the way, folks, we've got a ton of you here in the chat from the various platforms. Please make sure if you're not subscribed to the Basketball Bulletin on YouTube, you do hit that subscribe button. And let's get a like spike. Hit that like button for us. Jeremy said, keep Green and flip Booker, get more back. Yes, but the Suns are being stubborn. They won't do it. But I am in agreement with Jeremy. I think that's what the Suns need to do. Don't just rip the Band-Aid off a little bit, tear the whole damn thing off. And you know what? You could find yourself in a very good position, especially given the way the market is this year. Des Bain just went for, what, 4 first-round picks? Like, think about the return you could get for Devin Booker right now. I think that is the way the Suns need to go, but they don't want to do that.
Yeah, they want to, for better or worse, build around Booker right now, and I think that they're pretty far away from that at this point. I think they've got a handful of pieces they could keep, but I think for the large roster here, they're going to have to overhaul all of it. And unfortunately, they've got a $50 million poison pill sitting there with Beal. Who says that Beal, who's to say Beal can't be better this year by moving KD from the equation, especially if they flip Green for somebody else that fits better. So Beal can be more of your secondary scorer, things like that without any contention. But at the moment, it looks like it's kind of hard to do that. And again, Booker's already 29. This may be a couple year long process. I'm not really seeing it, They should probably strike while the iron's hot, sell Booker with the most value that he's going to have at this point. But there is something to be said for keeping your guy. I can understand that. But, if I were them, I'd be trying to flip Booker and just reset this whole thing.
Oh, man. Shams reporting that we talked about the Suns getting squeezed. The Miami Heat refused to include not just Kel'el Ware. They wouldn't include Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, Haywood Highsmith, or the number 20 pick or any other draft asset for Kevin Durant.
God.
So what would they offer? They were offering like Duncan Robinson and Andrew Wiggins, and that's it?
Like, yeah, basically. Nobody's giving them anything.
Wow.
Wow.
Holy crap.
They weren't even getting the pick this year?
No. That's what, and now that's via the Underdog NBA account that is aggregating that from Shams.
Yeah.
But oh my God. John Gambadoro, who does a great job covering the Phoenix Suns from their market, said the second round picks from Houston are the Rockets pick in 2032, Boston's pick in 2030, the 59th pick this year. The 59th pick?
The last pick of the draft.
The last pick of the draft. So that has you're talking about undrafted guys, one pick later, and 2 second rounders in 2026. So one of those picks is the 59th, I guess, hey, Isaiah Thomas cares about that pick because he was the last guy in the draft. But wow, one of those picks isn't even a good second rounder.
Yeah, that's
unreal.
This is all just got to be 1, age, and 2, the leverage, right? Like the fact that KD deterred teams and was like, put the Suns in a position where they didn't really have a choice but to choose from these couple of teams. Ultimately, at the end here, because everyone else must have just walked away from trying to trade for KD, they really did just get the best deal possible.
I mean, Brooks, and so that's between Brooks and Jalen Green. That is $54 million in salary. Wow. Okay, well,
and then that too. Yeah, he makes a lot of money, so you got to put a couple guys in there. But I'm like, from the Miami side of it, if I wonder what this swing was, because all we heard was it was Ware. But like, if you had to put in just matching salary, but give them maybe a couple, like one more first instead of maybe that would have got it done. Like I might have pulled the trigger on that if I was. Miami.
Well, let's talk about that, and then we can finish by talking about how Houston now stacks up in the West. But in terms of the trade market as a whole, I think this tells you that number one, if this is true. Oh, by the way, Mamadou said they need a defensive-minded point guard. 100%. Phoenix does. They need a big and they need a defensive-minded point guard. Absolutely. But let's talk about what this means for the market. So this can open things up because there were teams that were waiting on a Kevin Durant trade in order to make other moves. For Miami to offer so little for KD reportedly, that tells me that Miami has some other things that they've got, some other irons in the fire here. And Donnie, you and I talked about it yesterday, but could this mean Jonathan Kuminga? We know Miami wanted Kuminga in the Andrew Wiggins trade. They fought very hard to try to get him in there. They couldn't do it. I do wonder if that gets revisited here. And if Miami ultimately said, you know what, we think we can pull off something for Kuminga, we can make an argument. We'd rather have Kuminga long term than KD at this point, even though KD, no question, is an all time great. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. But Jonathan Kuminga just being so much younger, I do wonder if we see Miami now pivot to a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade deal.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's next for Miami because they're going to look to try to add a player in. And KD was from all that we've seen anyway, the first choice at that. But they clearly didn't want to go all in and give up the Godfather offer, if you will, from the Godfather no less. But that being said, yeah, it would have been probably for the best if they felt like they were pretty well positioned to try to get a guy like Kuminga afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not at the player that KD is, but the runway is much longer, right?
Absolutely. And that's where I could see the Miami Heat say, you know what? We're not going to get into a bidding war. This is our offer. Take it or leave it. If we can get a great deal, fine. If somebody else wants to offer more, fine. We're going to pivot to other options. And that's where the Suns, I think, really struggled to generate leverage in these trade talks. I think there have been teams, though, that have been waiting for a Kevin Durant trade to go down so that the rest of the market can open up. Now, is that going to happen immediately? I don't know. We'll see. But I do think this in general opens up the market and we'll see more stuff going down now. Some of the things that were kind of in a hold, waiting to see what would happen with Kevin Durant. And good Lord, could you imagine if Giannis was really available, how much everything would really be frozen right now? This KD deal wouldn't be done right now.
I was
if Giannis
say,
were
this
available.
One wouldn't be done at all.
This would not be done. No way. But I do think this can open up the whole trade market, which is especially important when we are just days away from the NBA draft. Oh, yeah, there is an NBA basketball game tonight as well.
Yeah, pretty big one.
Pretty big one. Game 7, NBA Finals. I can't wait for that. But I think we're going to see more activity now on the market now that this KD deal has happened.
Yeah, hopefully so. I'm looking forward to some of that stuff going down. So I wanted to ask you, the Rockets, did they take a step back or forward this year?
Oh, forward.
I mean, they were the second seed, at least for the regular season anyway. They were the second seed, but really they were like probably a couple games off of being like 6 or in the play-in, right? If I look at it, it's something like that.
Yeah, the West is so compressed that they're not far away from being that. Right, let me see. The Rockets, the difference between the Rockets and say a play-in team, they were 4 games up on the play-in.
That's literally nothing.
And you look, they were 16 games back of OK. That's how dominant OKC was all season.
That's where it's a little misleading. It's like they were number 2, and that's not me taking anything away from them. I think they were great this year, had a great season, but they're not far from the pack. OKC is the one that's making this look bad for everybody else. And so I wonder if having to manage KD, because Jalen Green, despite the fact that he is very volatile, he still put up 20 points a game for them last year in the regular season.
For sure.
Right. Brooks was, like I said, really good for them this year in the regular season. So I do wonder, like, it's not to say that KD isn't better than those two together, but I do wonder if like having those two and their production individually for the regular season and not having to manage them in the way you have to potentially manage KD this year, if they wind up taking a step back in the standings next year.
Perhaps. I think they certainly could. I mean, I think it's going to depend on what Phoenix does with Jalen Green here. That's going to matter. But when we look at Houston, look at the start. I mean, here's a good point. The starting 5, Van Vliet, Amin Thompson, KD, Sengun. Could it be Steven Adams? Could it be Jabari Smith? There's different ways you can go here. Like, that's a really good starting 5. Like Tari Eason is another guy. They've got so many long, lanky defensive players. I think KD is going to get to do KD things on this Rockets team. Just put the ball in the basket. I think this Rockets team could be really good.
Check Gambo right now.
Let me see. The Suns do not plan to trade. Oh, no. Now, this could be spin out of Phoenix.
Yeah, it better be spin out of Phoenix.
The Suns do not plan to trade Jalen Green. He's expected to play alongside Devin Booker in the backcourt. Oh no.
He's just glossing over the fact they can't get rid of Beal either.
Yeah, what happens to Bradley Beal then? You're gonna play. Are you gonna play Jalen Green, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal on the floor at the same time? Is that really what you're gonna do? Or are you gonna pay Bradley Beal $54 million to come off the bench?
You're gonna they did that last year, didn't they? They're gonna tell Beal to stay home, but no, screw it, check ball, man. put it all out there.
They're gonna start like putting tax on Bradley Beal's seat into the locker room and stuff like that. Try to do everything they can to convince him to not exercise his no trade clause, to deny that. Oh man.
Darvin for the 3-guard lineup.
Wow.
Yeah, that was not like, I don't mind them keeping Green. I just think that you have to kind of pick a lane, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind if they want to have Green as part of their core going forward. I think you need to pick a lane.
Here's the thing, Donnie, and Gambo, he does a phenomenal job. He does a great job. He is legit tuned in Phoenix. But I've also seen for the last couple of weeks, some of the stuff he's been putting out there has been pretty clearly from the Sun side, trying to drum up more interest, trying to make it sound like offers are out there, and trying to get teams to increase their prices. The Suns just went through a situation where everybody pointed at the Suns and said, "You're lying. We're not giving you what you want, and you're going to have to take what we're offering and like it." They just dealt with a situation where they have no leverage. If the prevailing thought right now, as soon as the Suns get Jalen Green, is, oh, they have to move him, which that should be the thought. That's reasonable. But if that is the case for the Suns, they're just going into another situation where everybody knows they need to make a move. And once again, they're going to be hurting for leverage to a degree. So the Suns, through Gambo, putting out, oh, no, we're going to keep Jalen Green. I mean, I guess, just like the Lakers were totally going to play Lonzo Ball and D'Angelo Russell together back in the day. I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know if I'd buy it.
I got to show this. This reminded me of that one time that he did put Reeves at center. But in all seriousness, Regulator said that according to Bobby, this can't be finalized until July 6th. That leaves a lot of room for them to put more players into this or add another team, whatever.
That is what I expect is going to happen. I think they just read it between the lines. I think this is posturing on the side of the Suns, and what they're going to do is this is going to get expanded. It's going to become a 3-team trade, maybe a 4-team trade, and Jalen Green will wind up going somewhere else that's not. He makes no sense in Phoenix whatsoever. No sense at all.
Yeah. We had some supers, so.
Okay. John said, trade Austin for Jonathan Isaac. Trevor, I like you. I would not do that. And I like Jonathan Isaac overall. He has such a long injury history, and he was an off-the-bench player for Orlando last season. I think Austin Reeves has a lot more value than Jonathan Isaac does right now.
Yeah, he'd be a nice player to have, but I wouldn't do that trade.
Not at that cost, but he'd be a nice player. Bri said Dillon Brooks to LA, Trev. I mean, if Matt Barnes can play with Kobe, if Lance Stevenson can play with LeBron, never say never about Dillon Brooks going and playing with LeBron James. But I think the Suns got Dillon Brooks for a reason. I think he fits. Unlike Jalen Green, I think he fits with Devin Booker. And so I would not expect the Suns to move Dillon Brooks.
Yeah, I really like Brooks there. I think he fits perfectly fine.
Yeah. And Bradley Beal, he reportedly likes I know the chat is talking about him right now. He likes the Phoenix market. He likes living there. His family's comfortable there. He has a no trade clause. I don't think he's going to exercise that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
or not exercise, waive it, the no trade clause.
Yeah. Well, for one, who's calling to ask for Beal? That's the thing. Nobody wants Beal. So they're going to try to offload him, and they're going to try all year long. And unless they're giving up assets, like, I don't know, all this stuff that they just got plus more, they're not getting off that contract. So.
Yeah, if they wanted to give up the 10th pick, maybe.
Well, okay, let me just play devil's advocate. Maybe they get to the deadline and Beal looks like an all-star again. I don't know. That
could happen. I mean, hey, Zach LaVine was not movable until suddenly he was.
Yeah, it's possible. Who knows, right? Yeah. So there's that. out there somewhere, but I would say it's maybe not likely, but
No,
you know.
no. All right, let's go here. Custodia had said Green for Vooch, 5 and expiring, and Zoe. So Jalen Green to the Chicago Bulls for Nikola Vucevic and Lonzo Ball, who are about 30 million in money, and Lonzo isn't expiring. Vucevic isn't expiring.
Fits their timeline better.
Fits their timeline. Yeah, I
Lonzo
mean,
would
I
be a
don't.
nice guard there as well.
If their only concern is clearing Jalen Green off their books, this makes a lot of sense. The problem is where's the positive value coming? Because Phoenix, Jalen Green's not necessarily a positive value for Phoenix right now because I hate the fit with Booker and Beal, but I don't think he's not a positive value in general to teams around the NBA. I think there's enough upside there for him to be positive. So I do think there would have to be something else coming from Chicago aside from just pure expiring contracts. And Vucevic can play, there's no question, but is he going to be your long-term fit? No, I question, whether he's dangling over that age cliff right now. Lonzo Ball, his injury history, you don't know what you're going to get out of him. So I do think that Chicago would have to add something to this. I'm not talking about a crazy asset or anything like that, but something I think would need to be added from the Chicago side.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I agree with you.
And that, like, do you want a Kobe White and Jalen Green backcourt moving forward if you're Chicago?
Yeah, that says nothing about the fact they've got IO still. They'll have to figure out they already have this kind of problem without Jalen Green, where they've got Giddey, IO, White. They've got a little bit too much there in the backcourt. So yeah, I wouldn't want to compound that issue by adding Green.
Would you, when you look at this trade, kind of put a bow on everything here, who won? Who wins the trade?
Houston.
Yeah. I'm in agreement.
I think it's pretty clear cut Houston because unless and until this expands, right? But clear cut Houston because they got the best asset. I think Kevin Durant's the best asset in this whole deal.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Exactly. And he's still playing at a very high level, right? And I do think you need to manage Kevin Durant's load. I think that the Rockets have guys there that can take pressure off of him, which is great. But I think he's the best asset here. What are we comparing him to? Brooks, Green, a number 10 pick? So
that's it.
He's
right?
37, but he's still, regardless. Right?
He's 37, averaging 26-4 on 43% from three and 53% from the field, 84% from the free throw line on 6 attempts per game. Yes, he's 37. Yes, the window is finite, but you're not going to get if he is 27, you have zero chance of getting him for this package. You have zero chance of getting him, period. You're still getting Kevin Durant playing at an extremely high level. This is not washed KD who's barely hanging on and scoring 10 points and 4 rebounds per game. This is an all-star player here that you're getting. This is a highly efficient scorer in Kevin Durant. So I don't think we can just look at him and dismiss him simply because of his age and say, that's it, he has no value. No, I think he's incredibly valuable. Do you have more of a short window? Yeah, you do. But man, I think this puts the Rockets really in the mix right now in the Western Conference. I think if the Rockets had Kevin Durant, they're in the West Finals against OKC.
Yeah. My only concern about the Rockets is offensively. I wonder if too much could wind up on Kevin Durant's shoulders. I wonder if they need another scorer on that team.
I think you're going to get organic growth from Sengun, from Thompson, from Jabari Smith, from Tari Eason, from some of these guys. Now, are all those guys pure scorers? Sengun, yeah, but the rest of them maybe not so much. So sure, could they use another guy
scoring like how Indy is?
But that's where we talk about Reed Shepherd, right? That's where can Reed Shepherd come in and have a bigger role than he did last year? What about a guy that they've now got, who I'm sure they'll just pick up the team option now on Fred VanVleet? Can he continue to provide scoring for them? And then could they go target someone else out there on the market? They still have that future Suns capital. So I think that you're onto something there where they might need another guy who could score the ball, but I wouldn't be necessarily against the idea that may occur just naturally with organic growth on their roster.
That's true. And that's totally possible because this team is outside of KD still really young, which also begs the question if they're going to be successful trying to do the all-in 2 timeline thing right now.
Yeah.
With the young and old player, but I do think they were, we said it a lot. Kevin Durant away. They just needed somebody that could score down the stretch for them, close the game for them, and be a go-to scorer for them. And I think KD is still able to do all of those things at an extremely high level at 36, 37. So final question before we get out of here. Do you think they have a legitimate chance to win it next year?
Yes. To win the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now that's what they're going for. You don't make
I would not make them the favorite. I think OKC in the West is still the favorite.
Yeah.
But they have a shot. They have a shot. This was their biggest weakness, and they just solved it. Okay. That gives them a chance. They are that good of a defensive team, and you just took your biggest weakness and got maybe the best at that thing in the entire NBA.
Yeah.
I think they have a shot.
I fully agree with you as well. And I know OKC kind of ran away with the West, but I think that when you lock into a 7-game series, so many things can change. So many things can happen. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Indiana right now. Like going into it, you wouldn't have pegged those teams to be on an equivalent tier. But if you get to a 7-game series, that means that these two teams are pretty evenly matched, So like, if that's the case, I think that there's a lot of variables at play to where Houston could match up favorably against some of these teams, and adding a 7-foot sniper like him it's a lot to deal with. So I think that I agree with you.
JM Ball said, will you trade Dalton Connect for Tari Eason? Yes.
Yeah.
I would do that. I would do that in a second. And I talked about Dalton Connect yesterday.
Play Shepherd, so I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, the Rockets would not do that. But yes, I would do that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, again, if you're not a subscriber yet to the Basketball Bulletin, we have been all over the Kevin Durant story. We've been talking all about it for weeks now. Please make sure you do subscribe. We're going to keep you up to date on everything going on around the NBA trade front. So hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications as well. Hit that like button before we get out of here. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us live here to break down this trade. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate all the support that we've received here on this channel. Again, you guys are awesome. So thank you to all of you guys. We are going to be getting our very cap-focused front office show breakdown in about a half an hour. So Keith Smith and I will jump on that over on the NBA front office show in just a bit. So be on the lookout for that one. Till next time, everybody. Appreciate all of you. See ya and stay safe.